Now we have a few more features that we are going to implement in our little blog project here. And one of them is for TinyMCE to replace this input field that we have. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at the TinyMCE documentation, because that's the package that I want to use to do this. For the most part, TinyMCE is free. And as you guys know, I do like to try to make sure that anything that we use is usually accessible to everyone who's using any of the things that we use. So TinyMCE, although it does have paid subscription models or whatever, which I don't really like, they have a very basic free structure that you can use, which includes cloud hosting, one domain plus a subdomain for editing features, and it doesn't support any of the add-on features, and it has some limits as to how many times the editor can load. But if you do decide to use this in genuine real projects that you do have in production, you may want to look into the pricing structure. I haven't, because as long as it's free, it's good enough for me. Now, here are some of the other features that it has. It has a media optimizer, AI assistant, revision history, just a bunch of stuff in the additional features. And this is expensive, $89 a month. I am not going to I'm not going to judge you on what you do or what you don't do. This is just one way you can do it. But typically when it comes to real text boxes, there is usually some sort of paid thing, unless you completely build something from scratch by yourself, which is a pain to do. It can be done, but it is a pain to do. And I think that that's why real text usually comes with some kind of payment, whether it's TinyMCE or another package that's using TinyMCE. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that before you try to put one of these in productions. Just look at the prices and see if that's something that you can manage. And if not, just use the free one and just have it very limited, I guess. This is the package that I'm going to use. I have never used it directly before, but it is here. Once you create an account and you log in, it is going to give you an API key that you're going to use. If we go to integrate, you can see there's a button up here that says get your API key. The other issue that I have with this is that you only get one API key, so you can't refresh it. You can't change it to something else. You can't renew it or anything like that. This is your one and only API key. That's why I'm blocking it out here, because I can't actually change it if I wanted to, unless I completely close out the account, which I might actually end up doing anyway. But either way, here's your API key, and this is something that we're going to need. Let's go ahead and copy this, and then we're going to put it in our project. Now, because we do not want to expose that API key to the front end, what we can do is we can go to our .env file, and then we can make a link to it. I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom under here, and I'm just going to say TinyMCE key. And then I am going to go ahead and paste in that key. And then under here, I'm going to come down and I'm going to say vite TinyMCE key, and we're going to say that that is going to be equal to the TinyMCE key. Save that, and now let's go back and see what else we can do. Well, how you're going to be using this basically is, since we're using React, we'll come up here to the React information. It has an editor component that it does bring with it. And this is where we would put our API key. We'll initialize it. We'll add the plugins that we want. We can have a toolbar, and then initial value, welcome to TinyMCE. Now, what I want to do is I want to go over to the TinyMCE quick start guide just so we can grab some information. Since we are using it with React, we can install, not this one, but we can install npm TinyMCE. What we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and grab this. We don't have to grab the whole demo. We'll come over here, and then we'll go ahead and paste that in. And since I'm using npm, I'm going to install it that way. So it has been installed. Now what we can do is go over to resources, JS pages, and we'll come down to our create page, and we'll start using that in here. Now I just want to come over here, and I'm going to grab this so that we can just use this one in here, because it's the same thing. And then if we head down to where we are displaying that, it'll be under here. I'm just going to get rid of this because we're not going to need it anymore. And I'm going to paste in all that's coming in from there. Now remember, we can use our API key, but we aren't going to need that because we do have a value for that. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to put some curly brackets, and then I'm going to say import meta dot env from our environment variable, and then this is going to be vite TinyMCE key. And we'll come up here, And then we'll go ahead and import that, and it is not fully imported yet. So let's go and do that. We can do it under here. Editor from at TinyMCE React. Now let's go down and make sure we don't have any more errors on there. And it is showing appropriately. So let's go and see what we have now. I am just going to close this and close this. Let me make sure my API key is correct. My API key is correct, but I have to put a $ here and some curly brackets around this so that I can recognize it in the front end. There we go. We have our nice TinyMCE. And as you can see, we have all of the functionality in it, which we can change. And we can even put a table in here. We could put a row. We could do a bunch of things. We can do that for the free one. And one of the things I want to do is I want to make this a height. I want to change the height of it. So let's go and do that. Here we can do on the init, we can change the height and say that that is 200. Refresh our page, and as you can see, it's much shorter. And I also want to remove this tiny welcome to TinyMCE thing in here. We can get rid of that as well, because I don't really want it to have an initial value. All of that is fine, but what I want to do is make some values. Because we are using React, we do need to make some values so that we can pull these values into the form and send it back to the backend. So I'm going to come up here and we are going to create a variable. I'll call it editor ref. Since what we're importing is the editor, we're going to say equals use ref. Well, we want to use a ref so that we can access it directly. For now, that's good. Let's go back to the editor and add some of those fields on here. I'm going to save that so I don't forget. Now, the first thing I want to put is an ID on here. It'll be body. We have our init key, but what I want to do is on init, I want to put in an event and bring in that editor and say that that equals the editor ref current. And then that's going to equal the editor. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have the form. And now we need to actually add this field to the form so that we can say, we can't just put the name on it for the form to pick it up. So we do have to change the data that's going in with the form. Now, how we do that is we transform the data. We can do transform, and then we're going to say data equals parentheses, curly brackets, ... data, to make sure that we include that because the form is expecting this data property on here. And we're going to say the body that's going to go back to the backend is going to equal the editor ref .get content. Now that get content is actually coming from TinyMCE, and then I am going to put a question mark in case that field is not there. I'm going to save that. We're getting an error because this should be equals. Now let's go to the post controller just so that we can see it before we submit it. We are going to fill in some data, blah, 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 blah. And if we add some extra spaces in there, blah, 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 we can add images, and we can also add, there's a site I like to use called getemoji.com. If you take a look through any of the descriptions on my videos, this is where I get those. And I really like this site because it has all kinds of emojis. It's super inclusive. So you even get the sort of skin color for emojis, which I think is kind of a cool thing to do. And you can get cream, you can get different shades of people. And then what you can do is, I'm just going to copy a bunch of these just randomly, and I'm going to paste them in. And as you can see, they're all laid out right there. Let's go ahead and save that. And as you can see, this is how we're getting it. We're getting them in paragraphs, and we have spaces in between. You can see even our little emojis here. Why don't we go ahead and set this up so that we can save that. I'm going to copy all this so I don't have to go back and retype all that. Now in our post controller, everything will be pretty much the same because the body is still coming in as string. I'm going to save this and we're going to try it again. We'll fill all that stuff in. Go ahead, paste in what we created, send it. And of course we don't have an image, but as you can see, this is what our post now looks like. That doesn't look very good. How can we set it up so this actually has the styling on it that we're meant to have? Well, let's go over to the show page because that's where that is being displayed. And if we head down to where we are displaying the body, which is right under here, as you can see, we just have a p tag with post body. Now, if you've used Vue before, Vue handles this by using a tag called v-html. And what that'll do is it'll allow you to have different characters or whatever it is just to display as HTML. React has something pretty similar, but I don't know if it's controversial or not. It shouldn't be, but the name of it does make me feel like it might be. It's called dangerously set inner HTML. This is the same thing where it allows you to just set the inner HTML to be whatever you need it to be. And in our case, it is the post title. The way that this is done is now we do 2 sets of curly brackets. We do underscore underscore HTML colon, and then we have to do some backticks, and then it'll be $sign. Let's just grab this from here because this is what it is. So now we can actually do this, 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 so that it's one sort of a thing. But as you can see, TypeScript is accepting this without any kind of an issue because this is part of React. I'm going to save that. You can see now we have all the spaces, the indentations, and we have our emojis set the way we wanted to set them. The thing is, it's supposed to be insecure to set HTML just directly in your pages, and I guess that's why it's called like that. It just is what it is. That's what we have to do, and that's how we can keep our styling for all of our posts. And now, even if we go to my posts, we have these in here. You can see we're not have to worry about it because we already have a title for it in here. Now, the other places that we were using this is on the front end. And also, before I forget to, on the navigation, we're going to fix this to have an active state so we can tell which pages that we're on, but we're going to do that in a minute. Now, these are our posts, and once they start to get displayed here, we do have a utility function that is truncating this, and I also want that to be a part of the new TinyMCE fields that we're going to be using. Let's go and do that first, and then we'll handle navigation. Now, those are being displayed in the components that we have for the dashboard, or for the welcome view, which is in custom posts. Description card is one of them. I'm going to close this so we have some space here. This is where we have the title, and then we have the function in here. We can do the same with these. Now we can just grab these, put it here. And I forgot my backticks. Featured post is where we're doing it also. Simple card, we don't have it. Or do we? No, we don't have it. And the welcome post is the description card, so it's the same. So that's fine. Now, there are a couple things that we're going to need for this. So I'm going to open up the navigation component, and I'm going to close the sidebar. The first thing that we're going to need to do is use Inertia to grab our page so that we know which page we're on. So I'm going to say const page equals use page. And yes, I could probably include it with this, but here we are. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to come down to our set of links here, which one is the dashboard, my posts, etc. And even though dashboard doesn't have this header, it doesn't matter. I want to put it here also. How we're going to do this, I'm going to copy this, or I'm not going to copy it, but we're going to make a new one. We'll say that class name equals, we'll put some curly brackets and then some backticks. I want to take these parts of it, and I'm going to paste them in here. So the inline block, the P2, I want to do that. And I want to also say and, because remember in React, when we're adding basically one thing conditionally, and just says it's going to be this and X, Y, and Z, and then we can put the other conditionals on the rest of it. We'll say and $, curly brackets. We're going to say if the page URL starts with, for this one, it's dashboard. So we're going to say we need the resolve URL, and that is a utility that's coming from one of the default utilities that we have from Inertia. We'll say resolve URL, and then we'll say /dashboard. We're going to come out of the parentheses. We're going to say question mark, and the color will be that text indigo 200. And on hover, I'm just going to copy this. Hover, it'll be text gray 100. And if not, I'm going to copy this whole thing. We'll come out of the first parentheses. And then we'll paste in this to the correct spot. This will be text indigo 200. And on hover, did I do those in the wrong order? Yes, I did. It's going to be text gray 100 and hover indigo 200. Get rid of that extra one. Let's see. We still have the same hover state and we're not on the dashboard. We are on post. So why don't we go do these two as well? Now we're getting this error because I have two sets of class names here and we only need one. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to copy this one. We'll come down to this one, replace it. This one, I don't know if I can use this. We'll give it a try and see. I don't know if that's going to work. Let's give it a try. Oh, that's not the one that we had, but we don't have an error. Let's open up the inspect tools just to be sure we don't have an error. Because if that works, then I can do the same for the dashboard. Let me, here we're good, get rid of this space. Let's try this one. Page URL starts with no, they don't work because we do need to use these. Well, actually, there's one more thing that we can try. These routes that are being used by Wayfinder, they also have a URL, and that's actually what we're looking for with this resolve URL, right? So let's go give those a try. And I'm going to change this one really quick because I think that's cool. I'm glad I just learned that. Yeah, look at that, dashboard.url. And then this one will be index.url. I love that. And now it's still post, so that's not going to work for that. I tried. Or did I not put the right one? I'm going to take a look at this and get back to you. Okay, so I figured out what was going on. This actually works just fine, but at some point I must have deleted the link href to index, and so that's why that wasn't working. Now we can use this resolve URL using the index.url, and up here the same thing with the user posts.url. So I'm going to save that. You can see we're on my posts. We are on posts, and if we go to, let's say, read this post, then we still have it here because it is still under posts technically. And I am fascinated because now I just learned something new live. Well, not live. When you see this, it won't be live, but while we've been doing this, and I think that's pretty cool little feature that we can use to handle our navigation. Then we were able to implement it right away. The reason is that's huge is I thought you had to just use it like this, but as I said, I'm still learning Wayfinder. Wayfinder can be a bit tricky, but that is a cool little feature. The other thing that I wanted to work on today is that, yes, we can create this and be part of our project. So what happens is when we create a post and we get redirected back to our show page, I want to use ShadCN's Sonar, which is a toast notification, so that we can have a little pop-up come up here when we click submit and it was successful. ShadCN has these components, and if you take a look, this is a quick little test of it, and I want something like that, but we can position it wherever we want. And we do that by installing this right here. Come over here and install it that way. And it's going to give us a component that we can use. Need to install. Yes. As you can see, it has created a new component for us, and that's what we can use. In the documentation, it shows you that you can use the toaster and use that as a component within your layout, and then you can call toast from anywhere in your project that has that layout. Let's go and do something like that. For us, we have a post layout, so we can use that. I'm going to close up some of these, and we can just go ahead and put it right here and import it. We're going to be importing this from the components UI Sonar. There it is right there. We'll go over to the create, and I'm going to close that. We can do it right here. Now we can be pretty broad in how we do this. If you wanted to create something like this in its own component, there comes a point where you have to decide whether too many components is too many components. I'm just going to do it right in here because it's really not going to be that big of a deal. I am going to say on success because this is going to be from Inertia where we get this function. And then on success, we'll say that that equals, we'll make it an anonymous function because it's not happening on a button click or anything like that. We can say toast. And as you can see now we have this, and we can auto import from Sonar just like we did with the toaster component. We'll say toast, we'll say promise, and then we need some arrows in here. Well, the first thing is going to be a name. And the name is going to be basically, what are we doing this for? So we're going to open up some parentheses here. We're going to create another anonymous function, and then we're going to say new promise. And I don't think that we need to import anything, but we'll give it a go and see. We'll put some parentheses, and then we'll say resolve equals. We're going to set a timeout, and this is just a JavaScript function. It tells our post notification when to close. Now we can bring in that name and give it a definition, which for us will just be post. I just want this to be 2 seconds. You can make it shorter, you can make it longer, however you decide. Here is where we can add some options. I want to position this on the top right. I want to have it say loading in case it takes a while for it to load. And then the success will be the data equals, this needs to be backticked, your data name, because this is what we're bringing into the promise. So anywhere we use this, it'll have that name has been created. And then on error, just going to say error. And I think that's good for now. Let's give it a try. Let's try this. It didn't go off. Let's do this. Create. There it is. Your post has been created. It took a little while for it to come down. We may want to change that. I don't know if that was me or not. So let's go ahead, create a post, and let's try it again. Now, that is pretty slow, and I don't know why. I could give you all kinds of reasons, but it may not be something I use in the future because I was looking at the pull requests on that Sonar, and there might be some issues with displaying it like this. So I don't know if I would trust this one too much. I would probably use something like Sweet Alert because that just works, right? It just works. And even though this does work, it's on some kind of a delay, and that's not the 2-second delay that I put on the timeout. I'll just leave that there. But if we come to create posts, I do want to put a footer down here as well. And that's really easy because we already have a component for that. Let's just go ahead and go all the way down to the bottom. Right in between these two divs is where I'm going to put it. It was imported fine. Let's go check it out. I'm going to refresh this too. But if you come down, we have that same component that was on the welcome view. This one right here. But now we have TinyMCE, and we've added a couple of other features as well. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.